It's Talking Old School with your host, Roger Franklin Williams.
Hey guys! Happy Saturday. You're listening to Talking Old School with the Tebow defender himself, Roger Franklin Williams, and the Tebow defense team.
Thank you, Kaylee. Hey guys, it's great to be back with you on a beautiful Saturday throughout Central Florida. In fact, Super Bowl Eve Saturday. And guess what we're going to talk about on Talking Old School today?
The Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, if you join us for the first time, you're listening to Talking Old School, where we're about what goes on inside the lines, in the arena, and on the scoreboard in the world of sports. No hype, no glitz, no BS. Old school. Hard work, teamwork, respect for the game. Old school. Talking about old school, talking about Super Bowl, we're going to be joined in just a few seconds by a man who has participated very possibly in more Super Bowls as a player, as an assistant coach, and as a head coach than anybody in the National Football League. He participated in 6 different Super Bowls as either a player or a head coach. He was a player, and as a player, he was part of the teams that established the Dallas Cowboys as a premier franchise in the early 60s and early 70s. As a coach, he's one of the very, very few coaches to take 2 different teams to the Super Bowl, the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons. And, of course, he played a key role in 2 of the most legendary games in NFL history, the Ice Bowl in '67 and the last-minute Denver comeback win at Cleveland in the AFC Championship game, also known as the Drive. I'm talking, of course, about Coach Dan Reeves. Coach, thanks for joining us today on Talking Old School.
Well, you got the right guy if we're talking old school, because I could fit in there.
You represent it so well. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. And so I just like to start with you. I know you, as I said before, you played in possibly more Super Bowls, or you participated in more than anybody as a player, assistant coach, and as a head coach. I'd like to ask you, first of all, can you share with us your most memorable Super Bowl memory as a player?
Well, I don't think it's any question. We had lost to the Baltimore Colts on the last second field goal in 1970, and we fought back and were able to get to the Super Bowl in 1971, played the Miami Dolphins in New Orleans. And to win that, we had knocked on the door for about 5 or 6 years of being close and losing to the Green Bay Packers twice, losing to the Cleveland Browns twice, and losing to Baltimore, and then finally beating Miami for a world championship. And just seeing, look on Coach Landry's face, that was worth it all right there.
Now, I was going to ask this in a minute, but let's go ahead and address it now. Coach Tom Landry, who was your coach with the Dallas Cowboys, and of course you went on to serve as an assistant coach under him, one of the most respected men in NFL history. Can you share with us what was it about Coach Landry that made him, first of all, such a successful coach, building that Dallas Cowboys franchise from an expansion team into a dynasty, and what caused him, even more importantly, to be so respected by so many of his former players, such as yourself, Coach Mike Ditka, and so many others?
Well, I think, if you look at the 2 coaches that are coaching, tomorrow in the Super Bowl, they have a lot of things in common, and the same things that Coach Landry believed in. Very much a disciplinarian, very much depended on preparation to get the job done, and we were always prepared in every football game he ever coached. And he just looked at everything in detail and wanted to cover everything he possibly could to prepare you to go out and play. He always felt like preparation was the greatest motivator of all.
Guys, you're listening to Talking Old School with Roger Franklin Williams. Kaylee's here with us as well. Right now we're speaking to a true NFL legend, Coach Dan Reeves. Coach, I'd like to go one step further. Can you share your most vivid memory or your most memorable Super Bowl memory as a head coach?
Oh, gosh, I think you mentioned it earlier because so much was on the line, the Drive in Cleveland. When you're on the road playing in a hostile environment and the Super Bowl's on the line, and you got, a little over 4 minutes to go in the game and you're starting on your own 2-yard line and you're able to tie that and win that has to go up there right along with this overtime win against Minnesota when I was in Atlanta. Those 2 games really stick out as a head coach.
And now you mentioned Atlanta, and I think, most people, I think, associate with a lot of old school guys, I guess, associate you back to your playing career with the Cowboys. and then on with your assistant coaching with career with the Cowboys and head coach at Denver. But you also took Atlanta to the Super Bowl, which I think arguably is one of the great coaching jobs in the NFL. I mean, or inarguably. I mean, that's a franchise that had been a losing franchise almost since its inception. Can you just share a little bit about the rebuilding process that you did to go into a franchise that had no tradition of winning whatsoever and get them to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think first of all, they had a lot of good players there. We had to look at it and evaluate, what we had and try to build on that. And with free agency, you could address those things. We were able to get a quarterback in Chris Chandler. We were able to get some defensive backs and Ray Buchanan, Ashley Ambrose. We got some good players that fit in with some great players that they had already there with Jamal Anderson. And, the list goes on and on. They just had some great players, and we're just, we're able to put some pieces in there and getting everybody to believe in themselves and play an unselfish football.
Now, I'd like to go back and revisit the drive again. Of course, that's one of the most memorable plays in NFL history. Can you just kind of take us back to, you guys get the ball, you're on the road in Cleveland, hostile environment, it's very, very cold. Your backs are against the wall in every way. Can you just talk about maybe the mindset that you guys had, any conversations you may have had with John Elway? Can you just back to that when you guys got the ball and started it on your own 2-yard line?
Well, they just scored and taken the lead, and you expect them to get the ball out around the 25 to 30-yard line, maybe if you're lucky, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, we're on the 2-yard line. So, thank goodness we had prepared for, if we were backed up inside our own 5-yard line, and we had a set of plays there, they wanted to run, so we started using those plays, and John was able to get us out, the shadow of our own end zone, and then, made a great throw to Steve Sewell down the middle of the field that got us where we could at least be in 4-down territory. And, I think the only time we really had a conversation, we called the timeout. We had 3rd down and about 17 to go, and that was a conversation that we had. I want, John to be sure that don't pass up the short receiver because we got 2 downs here to make up for it, to get the 1st down. But, he found Mark Jackson open and hit him for a 1st down, and now again we got 4 more downs, that we can go. So it was just we had prepared for that situation, and I think that's what I was talking about earlier about preparation. You never know exactly what's going to happen in a game. You got to be prepared for it, and, when you have a quarterback like John Elway, you got a chance in every single game to pull something out, and I think that is where he showed everybody that he was an exceptional quarterback.
Coach, you have about maybe 5 more minutes to stay with us?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your gracious time you're spending with us today. Guys, you're listening to Coach Dan Reeves, man who's participated in 6 Super Bowls as either a head coach or a player, and also other Super Bowls as an assistant coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And he's reminiscing about his various highlights of his extraordinary career. Now, speaking of Elway and the drive and the skills that he utilized to pull that off, ironically, Tim Tebow is playing for the franchise at for Denver now, and Elway is his vice president of operations. And from my outsider's perspective, it looks like Tim Tebow has some of those similar skills, and I mean specifically the ability to improvise and to turn a bad play into a good play and actually pull the ball down and run it and move the chains and make a big play in a crucial situation. And I know you've talked to us before about your thoughts on Tim Tebow. Could you share those with us again today?
Well, I mean, there's no question. I like Tim Tebow. I think he does give you an opportunity to, win every single game he plays in. I do think he has to, improve in the area where everybody in the stadium knows you have to throw the football, and you can't rely on a play action or, faking the handoff or, the running game. You've got to do it by throwing the ball. And I think looking at his work ethic, I don't think there's any question that he will improve on that and be good at that. And I think that's something this off season, will pay dividends for. He's just such a great competitor, great leader. And, it's nice to have that kind of player on your football team.
And I think when we've spoken before Tebow started playing, and you had expressed your confidence in him, and you mentioned that, and of course, you played with NFL great Hall of Famer Roger Staubach, and you had mentioned at that time that you saw some similarities both in style of play and also intangibles between Tim Tebow and Roger. Could you share that with us?
Well, Roger had a little bit of a wind up to throw the football. He was one of those guys that wanted to wait and see if the receiver was open. He had such a strong arm that he could get it there, after the receiver showed that he was open. But that, you have to take a lot of hits, and you need to be able to throw the ball on anticipation when it's running a sideline. You got to let that ball go before you ever breaks, and it's a responsibility of that receiver to get open. You got to put it in a place where he can catch it. Those are the things that I think Tim will improve on because he's such a hard worker. He's going to work hard to try to improve on his skills, and I think he knows that's where he's got to improve.
Coach, I want to thank you for being with us today. It's always great to catch up with you. I'd like to thank our friend Harold Richardson for helping put me in touch with you back in some months ago there. Before you go, could you just give us maybe a couple thoughts on the game tomorrow from your perspective?
Well, I think it should be a great game. You got two tremendous offensive football teams. Both do it a little bit different, but they've got a quarterback that really makes plays, and they're are very good in the fourth quarter. So whoever's got the ball last is probably going to have a chance to win it. So I think the defense, if you look at that, the Giants have a little bit of an edge because they can put pressure on the quarterback without blitzing and maybe opening up some areas that Tom Brady could pick them apart. So I think the Giants are a little bit better on defense, and I think both special teams are really good. So I would give the edge to the Giants and say it's going to be a close game, and the Giants got a chance to win it.
Very interesting. Thank you for your comments, and have a great day. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks, Roger.
Guys, one of the true outstanding players and coaches in the history of the National Football League, Coach Dan Reeves, coming to you live on Talking Old School.